What's good? Welcome back to the channel. This is another episode of Library Card, a series where I'm digging into some of the books that I've been borrowing from the library, and of course, these are all photo books. Before we jump into today's book about Henri Cartier-Bresson, we're actually going to look at real quick, just show you the books that I got from other artists. So this one's called Big Shot, and is basically a book by Philip Leeds where I think he worked in the music industry and basically met every famous person you can think of, and he had a big shot Polaroid camera and use that to take a bunch of great images of people. They're all famous people, so just an interesting book to see a bunch of celebrities shot on film. This is a very infamous book. This is The Print by Ansel Adams, and this is one of 3 books in the volume. And this one's particular about taking a negative and actually creating a print out of it. So it's everything you could ever want about creating a print. And that goes to like building your own darkroom, for example. This thing has it all. If you're interested in darkroom printing, black and white specifically, you have to read this book. And then lastly, I've got a very interesting book here by Joel Meyerowitz, and it's called Redheads. Basically, he found himself photographing a lot of redheads across all of the portraiture he did out in the streets. So he decided to one day actually build a volume out of it. And he had a casting call. He basically put out an ad in the paper saying, if you're red-haired, come to this place and I'm going to photograph you. And he did that. It's really interesting. A lot of really beautiful portraits in here. And it's just really interesting to see how he moved through the streets and connected with people and made portraits of them live outside. So a really cool book if you like street portraiture. All right, let's go ahead and jump into today's actual book, and that is this right here. This doesn't have a title, really. It's just by the name of Henri Cartier-Bresson. And this is basically an anthology kind of a book. It's kind of a greatest hits, let's say. And it's got a lot of his classic images, summarized into this one small volume. And I love it because it's so small and pocketable. But if you want more of a focused book or you want bigger prints, you have to definitely look at one of the other books that you can find. They're all very expensive because he's obviously one of the greats, but this one is at the local library, so I borrowed this one. I was really excited to look at this because there's not too much information in here. This isn't like the classic photo book where the photographer plays more of an active role in kind of telling a story as part of the book. This is just image after image after image. You do get some information about where it was taken, but that's basically it. So you can kind of take this book and make do with it whatever you like. And for this video, I thought there were 3 interesting lessons that I got from looking at these images that you should probably hear about. So this book's pretty cool. The images are very small. That's kind of my only critique or downside, but there's a lot of images in here. So if you're looking to really see the full breadth of work, this is a great way to do it. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the book. By far, one of the most interesting things about Cartier-Bresson's images are how playful they are. Specifically, I want to talk about images like this one. This right here is perhaps one of his absolute most famous images. And there's a couple things going on here, but I think there's one signature thing going on here that is very, very kind of typical and one of the things that he's well known for. And that's the use of lines. So as you see, there's some very aggressive lines here. There's a curved line here. There's the lines from the steps. A lot of geometry. And Cartier-Bresson seems to have been obsessed with geometry. He's constantly photographing images of things that showcase a lot of really strong lines in interesting ways. So we're not really talking about straight lines here, up and down, left and right, kind of perpendicular lines. It's always something a bit more interesting than that. And I think that is probably one of the key things we can learn from his photography. It's that you can showcase these lines in very interesting ways. You can get playful with them. You can kind of get creative, and it's all about your particular composition. And of course, there's a classic street photography nod here where he probably sat here and waited for somebody to come through so that he could capture them in this kind of open space in the image. And, that's just like next level photography. But still, the lines in this image are the absolute most important thing. And I feel like anyone who's traveled anywhere has seen things like this all over the place. If you want to replicate a shot like this, it's probably not that hard. But I think if you want to learn something from this and kind of take a technique away, it's that you can apply your creative eye to showcasing scenes like this in an interesting way. This right here is another very famous example. This one's a little bit different from the other one because the lines here are a bit more kind of obvious and less abstract, but still showcasing lines in a very kind of specific way and making the lines themselves kind of the focal point of the image. These lines don't have any particular meaning or, there's no kind of like story behind them potentially, although I don't know exactly where this image was taken. It does say here that image was taken in Saint Bernard, Paris. So if you know something about that, maybe it makes that a bit more important. But the lines, again, this is kind of the focal point. So as the photographer, he's kind of just playing with this scene and capturing it in a way that he thinks is interesting. The lines dominate, but of course, this is not accidental at all. Filling negative space with some people in it, classic street photography move. But then for the person looking at this image, the fun in here is looking at those lines and following them and seeing where they go. And of course, they go kind of off the frame here. You don't know what else is over here. That's part of the intrigue and part of the fun of looking at this image. So again, if you can learn anything, it's that you should be very playful with the scenes that are in front of you and always look for lines because they tend to be pretty interesting. So this book is, of course, an anthology, meaning there's going to be a wide variety of images in here, but I think that in of itself is a bit of a lesson. Bresson didn't seem to focus on just one type of thing in his photography. There wasn't one single technique. There wasn't one single subject matter. There wasn't one single kind of tone and kind of perspective. And I think that's very important. So, for example, you've got an image like this, which is clearly kind of candid street photography, but it's a humoristic one. You've got this picture here resembling the expression of this guy. And this is just an opportunistic thing. He was walking, he saw it, and he snapped a photo. If we go over here, this is again playing into that geometry that was saw in the other examples. He was obsessed with geometry and shapes and showcasing that in the environment, kind of framed by the people. As you can see here, these kids are framing the image. So two very different types of images. And then there were things like this, which are, again, an exercise in looking at geometry, but now it's more about playing with light. And you see these are big shadows cast by whatever building is on this side. So he's kind of just enjoying himself, and he's looking around, and whatever strikes him, he focuses on it. This is another really good example. I actually really love this image because it's such a cinematic, such a real moment. And this is, again, more candid street photography. These people were just kind of doing their thing and being themselves, and he snapped a photo of it. So I think the lesson here is that you don't have to stick to one genre of photography or one technique. But you can do absolutely whatever you want. And if that means you want to just kind of capture whatever's in front of you, just be kind of an fly on the wall, if there are any walls, or just kind of a intrepid photographer kind of roaming around, you can do that. And there's still beauty in that. There's still value in that. Not everything has to be super deep or super, kind of noteworthy. You can kind of just explore the world and capture it as you may. And he talks about it like that a lot. He finds himself not to be some special thing. And of course, he's just being very humble. But when you hear him talk about his work and himself and his accomplishments, he always just said he was being himself. He was living. He was just kind of going around and doing his thing. And that's something that's very highly commendable. And I think for the average street photographer, or just the average photographer, let's say, it's a very important thing to remember. Not everything has to be, this incredible work. You can kind of just practice and do what you like. And over time, that could manifest into something a bit more meaningful. Going off of that lesson in terms of kind of just not sticking to one subject matter, I think another really important thing to think about is the idea of enjoying the process of photography. The process itself and the experience of going around and documenting things or just capturing whatever's in front of you, that in of itself has value. And it doesn't mean that your photography has to be something else beyond that. If you simply enjoy photography for what it is, that is not only totally okay, but that might be the most important thing, at least, in terms of how Cartier-Bresson sees it. Let's listen to this excerpt right now from an interview he did.
I like shooting, that's all.
Just shooting.
Yes.
What is it you like about it?
I don't think of photography. I think of what I see and geometry. That means everything has to be composed properly.
Today,
because I started with drawing.
And you returned to drawing.
I never quit drawing. The camera is a way of drawing.
When you take the photograph, is there a moment for you that you know when to snap?
When the subject takes me,
When the subject takes
then
you?
I'm receptive and I shoot. But just to concentrate. In a silence. And you mustn't want. You must be receptive. Don't think even. The brains is a bit dangerous. Sensitivity, the flavor, up.
So there you have it. He doesn't consider himself to be anything special. He doesn't consider his process to be anything special. He wasn't overly technical. He wasn't obsessed with cameras. He just liked the experience of taking photos. And he didn't do a lot of darkroom work. It wasn't his favorite thing. But again, everything goes back to the actual experience of walking around with a camera and interacting with the world around you via that camera. And that's something that I can respect a lot. and something that I hope to kind of achieve, because there are a lot of pressures on us nowadays with social media and everything else to create specific types of work and to accomplish, whatever. But from his point of view, that's all secondary. The most important thing is actually getting out there and enjoying the process of creating the images. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Definitely a few lessons for you to learn there. And I thought that video clip was also pretty interesting, so you can get to see who the person Henri Cartier-Bresson actually was as well. So subscribe to this channel, click on the playlist as well, make sure you don't miss any of these videos. And I got a lot more books on hold right now at the library that I'm gonna go pick up tomorrow. So pretty excited to share those with you as well. And I'll try to make a video like this maybe once a month or something like that. All right, y'all, to the next one. I'm out.